you are all doing fine. First, I'd like to thank all of you who have been watching our videos and encourages us to post our reading series from Srimad Bhagavatam. And I humbly request all of those persons who are watching the video, and please do share our video. In this way we can preach the message of Srimad Bhagavatam all over the world, and will be the part of the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So welcome back to our reading series from Srimad Bhagavatam, Nityaṁ Bhāgavata-Sevayā. So until now we have finished the chapter 1. The last chapter, titled as the questions by the sages. The first 3 verses describe the prelude to Srimad Bhagavatam. Those describe the sambandha, avidya and prayojana jnana for the spiritual realization. Verse 4 and 5 of the first chapter describe the setting of Srimad Bhagavatam, and verse 6 and 8 glorified the speaker, Srila Suta Goswami. And from 9 to onwards 23, the 6 questions asked by the sages at the place of Naimisharanya were described. The 6, just for the recap, the 6 questions were that what is the absolute and ultimate good for everyone? What is the essence of all Vedic scripture? Why did Krishna appear as a son of Devaki and Vasudeva? About he then inquired about the pastimes of Lord Krishna, about the purpose of 10 incarnations of God, Supreme Personality of Godhead, where, and the 6th question, the last question was that where religion has taken shelter now that Krishna had left this world. So we'll start 2nd chapter today. In this chapter, Srila Suta Goswami will starting answering the questions of the sages one by one. So we'll go through those. So today we'll try to cover from verse 1 to verse 5. These verses are basically the glorification by Srila Suta Goswami before starting answering the questions, quoting the Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by Srila Shukadeva Goswami. So before we start, we'll do by Mangalacharan. Narayanam namaskritam naranchaiva narottama devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye srimad-dham sakatha krishna punna savana kirtana hridayanta suhavadrani vidunati suritsatam nashta prayeshu abhadreshu Nityaṁ Bhāgavata-Sevayā bhagavatiruttama sloke bhaktir bhavati nashtaki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Verse 1. Vyasa uvacha iti samprashna samhrishto vipranam roma harshani pratipujya vachastesham pravaktum upachakrame. Vyasa uvacha, Vyasa said, iti thus, samprashna, perfect inquiries, samhrishta, perfectly satisfied, vipranam, of the sages there, Ramaharshani, the son of Ramaharshana, namely Ugrasrava. Pratipujya, after thanking them, vacha, words, tesham, their, pravaktum, to reply to them, upachakrame, attempted. Translation: Ugrasrava, Suta Goswami, the son of Ramaharshana, being fully satisfied by the perfect questions of the Brahmanas, thanked them and thus attempted to reply. So we'll just point out that what Srila Prabhupada mentioned in the purport of each verses. Here in this verse, it is the points that should be noted there. When a devotee has been asked a question which is related to Krishna, a question that is called in Sanskrit prashna, But when it is perfect question that is related to Krishna, that is called Samprashna. So the sages are asking, that is a perfect questions. It is called here as Samprashna. The devotee is very much pleased to answer the question, because by answering the question he will get the opportunity to glorify and remember them. The pure devotee always engage themselves in Shravanam and Kirtanam. They always try to preach the Lord's name, which makes themselves pleased, and they want to make others to please, to hear the pastimes of Lord Krishna Katha. So here Srila Suta Goswami is, before answering the question, he thanked them to ask those questions. Those are the perfect questions, and it makes him satisfied. Thus here Srila Suta Goswami, being satisfied, Samhrishto, thanked the sages to ask him such questions, and then attempted to answer the questions. So the next verse, Shruta uvacha yam pravajantam anupetam apeta kritam dvaipayana viraha katara juhavam putreti tanmayataya taravo bhinedus tam sarva bhutariddam munim anatusmi. Suta, Srila Suta Goswami, uvacha said, yam, whom, pravrajantam, while going away for the renounced order of life, anupetam, without being reformed by the sacred thread, apeta, not undergoing ceremonies, kritvam, prescribed duties, dvaipayana, Vyasadeva, viraha, separation, katara, being afraid of, ajuhava, exclaimed, putra iti, O my son, tat maya taya, being absorbed in that way, tarava, all the trees, avinedu, responded, tam, unto him, sarva, all, bhuta, living entities, viddam, heart, munim, sage, anatas asmi, offer obeisances. Ugrasava Suta Goswami, the son of Brahmaharshana, being fully satisfied by the perfect questions of the Brahmanas, thanked them and thus attempted to reply. That was the translation of first verse. The second verse translation is, Srila Suta Goswami said, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto that great sage Sukadev Goswami, who can enter the hearts of all. When he went away to take up the renounced order of life, Sannasa, leaving home without undergoing reformation by the sacred thread or the ceremonies observed by the higher caste, his father, Vyasadeva, fearing separation from him, cried out, O my son, indeed, only the trees which were absorbed in the same feelings of separation echoed in response to the bereaved father. So here Srila Suta Goswami is now offering the obeisances to Shukadev Goswami before starting replying the questions. Srila Shukadev Goswami is his spiritual master, the speaker of Srimad Bhāgavatam. He is going to answer the questions by quoting Srimad Bhāgavatam spoken by Srila Shukadev Goswami. But before that, he offered the obeisances unto him. Here, three different qualities of Shukadev Goswami we can point out. What are those? He is Vaishnava from the beginning, the liberated soul. To make us understand this point, the position of Vaishnava, Prabhupada nicely gave a detailed description in the purport. What is that? He said that after birth, one person being an ordinary being can be born second time. How's that? By purificatory processes. So what is this purificatory process? This will happen in his lifetime when he will seek for a new light and seeks a direction for spiritual progress. At that time, to advance in the spiritual path, he will approach, he will look for a spiritual master. He will then approach to a spiritual master who can accept him as a disciple. And by knowing his eagerness of inquiries of the Lord, that spiritual master gives him a sacred thread, which is called twice born or Dijva. So this stage, this level is also called Brahmana. So he will be initiated by the spiritual master as a Brahmana. In this Brahmana stage, the responsibility for that person is to know in detail about the Vedas, and because he needs to purify himself and prepare himself to preach, to let other people, other conditioned soul about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which will help them to free from the bondage of this material world. So that is the stage of Brahmana. So after qualifying as a Dijva, one may study Vedas. So he will start the Vedas, and after being well versed in the Vedas, he becomes Vipra or qualified Brahmana. He realizes at that stage, he realizes the absolute and will make further progress in spiritual life until he reaches the stage of Vaishnava. So this is the stage of Vaishnava, the highest, topmost stage. And to reach there, one must go through these steps. But here, Srila Shukdev Goswami doesn't need to go through those steps, because he was a Vaishnava from the beginning. He is beyond all samskara, purificatory ceremonies. So here, Srila Suta Goswami offered his obeisances to Shukadev Goswami and glorifying him that he is the Vaishnava from the beginning, and he doesn't need to do any purificatory process, any purificatory ceremonies. The second point, the second quality that was described in this verse is that Srila Shukadev Goswami can enter everyone's heart. Sarva Bhuta Riddham. Why Srila Suta Goswami says that? In Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 18, verse 61, Krishna says that Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Ridideshe Arjuna Tishtati. The Supreme Lord resides in the heart of all living entity. He also again mentioned in Bhagavad-Gita in chapter 15, verse 15, Sarvasya Chaham Ridisannivishta. I am seated in the hearts of all living beings in the form of Paramatma, the plenary portion of Sri Krishna. Srila Shukdev Goswami has also the ability, according to this verse, that Srila Suta Goswami is saying that he also has that ability to enter the heart of all living beings. Why? Because he is a pure devotee and he has a pure connection with the Supreme Lord. The third quality is that he can also enter the heart of dull trees and make those trees responsive to Srila Vyasadeva. Because when, in this verse, what is it saying, that when Srila Shukdev Goswami went out to renounce everything, take the sannyasa, as a father, Vyasadeva was feeling the separation from his son, and he was calling him after, when he was going out, he was calling him, oh my son, oh my son. But Srila Shukadev Goswami was a liberated state. He doesn't have any attachment to anything of those. Thus he was not replying when Vyasadeva was calling him. But what happened when Vyasadeva was calling, that sound vibration goes to the trees and the echoed come back from the trees. So by mentioning this thing, Srila Suta Goswami is trying to say that, and praying to Srila Shukdev Goswami that you can enter the heart of the trees. So also, please enter to our heart. Thus, when you enter to our heart, then we will be able to understand and relish the message of Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by you. So, please enter my heart and make me speak Srimad Bhagavatam. So, that is the main points that we can found from this verse, that Prabhupada is also explaining the thing in a purport. So let's go the next verse, verse 3. Yat sanubhavam akhila shruti saram ekam adhatma dipam atitir satam tamondham samsarinam karunaya purana gujjam tam vesha sunum upayami gurum muninam. Yeah, he who swa anubhavam, self-assimilated or self-experienced, akhila, all around, shruti, the Vedas, saram, cream, ekam, the only one, adhatma, transcendental, deepam, torchlight, atitir sartam, desiring to overcome, tamandham, deeply dark material existence, samsarinam, of the materialistic men, Karunaya, out of causeless mercy. Aha, said, Purana, supplement to the Vedas. Gujjam, very confidential. Tam, unto him. Vaisha Sunum, the son of Vasudeva. Upayami, let me offer my obeisances. Gurum, the spiritual master. Muninam, of the great sages. Translation, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto him, Sukadev Goswami, the spiritual master of all sages, Guru Muninam, the son of Vasudeva, who out of his great compassion for those gross materialists who struggle to cross over the darkest regions of material existence, spoke this most confidential supplement of the cream of Vedic knowledge, after having personally assimilated it by experience. So in this verse, Srila Goswami continues offering the obeisances to Shukdev Goswami. He is mentioning the qualities of Shukdev Goswami by which he was inspired to speak Srimad Bhagavatam. Let's go to see those qualities. Number 1, Shukdev Goswami was self-experienced. Swanubhavam, the essence of Vedic knowledges. He was self-experienced. That we are discussed in the last lecture also, that when we are reading the scriptures, the verses from Srimad Bhagavatam or Srimad Bhagavad Gita, this is not just to be recited. You need to read the verse, understand, take it into our heart, and then you can explain. And then you can explain to others what you have relished from that. So that is the main purpose of reading the Vedic scriptures, to know about the God. So Srila Shukdev Goswami was that person, that he heard Srimad Bhagavatam from Vasudev, and then he took that message into his heart, self-realized, self-experienced that message of Srimad Bhagavatam. And the second point is, out of compassion, he spoke Srimad Bhagavatam as the transcendental torchlight for the materialistic men who are struggling to cross over the darkest material existence. So this Srimad Bhagavatam will help us as a torchlight, that we are explaining this thing when we are talking about the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam in the beginning of our reading series. So that is the point here, that Srimad Bhagavatam is acting as a torchlight to give us the light while we are in this darkness, in the dark material existence. Srimad Bhagavatam helps us to see ourselves, give us the light of knowledge to know about God, Sri Krishna. Prabhupada clearly mentioned here about the struggling that the living entity is doing here in this material world. So it is Shatasiddha, that what is called, that whoever come to this material world should struggle, should be in the struggling situation. They are always in the suffering situation, and this is the darkness region of material world. Prabhupada also says the same thing in the purport, just to let us know that we are always in a suffering position, suffered position. Okay, so this material world is Dukhalayam, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, that this material world is temporary and full of miseries. He says in Bhagavad Gita chapter 8 verse 15, all living beings starting from Lord Brahma to insignificant and can't be happy here. If they are feeling happy, that is temporary, very temporary. You are feeling happy in this moment, who knows, in 2 hours, after 2 hours or 3 hours, you will not feel the happiness. It is just a flickering, but most of the time you are in a distress position, distress condition. The mind is always trying to remember us that you are not happy, you are in distress condition. So because we are situated in a Dukhalayam, they are bound by the chain of their previously performed works as stated in Brahma Samhita. Yastu indra gopa mathavendra mahusa karma bandhanurupa phalabhajana matanati karmani nidrahati kintu ja bhakti vajam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. So what is it says, that Indra Gopam, that is the smallest ant in this material world, from that one to Athavendra, King Indra in the heavenly planet, everybody is bound by their karmic reaction. But one who is engaged in the devotional work of Supreme Lord, they can burn up all the roots of fruitive activities. So the foolish human beings are wasting their human life in the sense gratification without endeavoring to know about God. But they can be free from that bondage by performing the devotional work for the Supreme Lord, which will burn up their fruitive activities. So there are two types of activities. It can be good work or bad work, but both of the activities, the actions, results of good work or bad work will bind you, will give you the bondage to this material world. But when you are doing all the works by performing the devotional work to the Supreme Lord, it will burn up all their fruitive activities. So Srila Shukdev Goswami have spoken Srimad Bhagavatam for those fallen souls, fallen living entities, to help them to be free from the entanglement of these material miseries. This Srimad Bhagavatam is acting as a transcendental torchlight by which one can perfectly see the transcendental absolute truth realized as Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. So I'll tell a little bit about these three features of absolute truth. These three levels of progression of auspiciousness on realization of different aspects of Lord. The auspicious one is the realization of Brahman aspect, the Brahmajati. It is not complete. This is the Sat aspect. Bhagavan has the absolute truth is Satchidananda, right? So the Sat aspect, the Sat feature is this auspicious, this Brahman aspect. the realization of Brahman, the Brahma Jyoti. This is realized by the Jnanis. Next, the more auspicious is the realization of Paramatma aspect. That in the Jnani level, when they are frustrated by doing all the activities in the material world, and they think that there is something beyond this material world, and they are looking for that one, and they realize that the absolute truth is that Brahma Jyoti. And after that, by the yogis, when they start meditation, they realize that the absolute truth is present in our heart and everyone's heart. That is the Paramatma realization, that is Sat and Chit realization. So both this auspicious and more auspicious level, the Brahman realization and the Paramatma realization, are not complete. Then the most auspicious level is the realization of Bhagavan aspect. That is the complete Sat, Chit and Ananda aspect of the Supreme Lord can be realized. And this can only be realized by doing the devotional service, and only can be done by the bhaktas, the devotees. That is the complete realization. So, Srimad Bhagavatam is acting as a torchlight to realize those different levels, mostly the Bhagavan level, the complete level of realizing the absolute truth. And the next qualities is the Guru Muninam. Srila Shukdev Goswami is the spiritual master of all sages. Interestingly, when he was reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, in the audience there was present Srila Vyasadeva and his guru, Sri Narada Muni. They were sitting there in the audience and relishes the nectarian juice of Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by Shukdev Goswami. He has that ability. Shukdev Goswami has that ability, and empowered by the Srimad Bhagavatam, that he can make his Guru and Param Guru relished by the Srimad Bhagavatam. So onwards, the next verse is the 4th verse. Narayanam namaskritta naranchaiva narottamam deving saraswatim vyasam tato jayo mudiraye. Narayanam, the personality of Godhead. Namakritta, after offering respectful obeisances. Naram chaiva, the Narayana Rishi. Narottamam, the supermost human being. Devim, the goddess. Saraswatim, the mistress of learning. Vyasam, Vyasadeva, Tata, thereafter, Jayam, all that is meant for conquering. Udiraye, be announced. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. This is the verse that we usually recite before start reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam. Here Srila Sutta Goswami is offering obeisances to others like Lord Narayana, the presiding deity of Badrikashram, Narayana Rishi, Mother Saraswati, and author Srila Vyasadeva. Here the Srimad Bhagavatam is addressed as the conqueror over the material illusion, Jaya Mudiraye. But one should approach Srimad Bhagavatam with humility by offering prayers. How Srimad Bhagavatam is means of conquest? First, by understanding that I am defeated. I am the servant of the Lord. Then he wants to know about God, and by inquiring about Lord through Srimad Bhagavatam. And then he can re-establish the relationship with the Supreme Lord. Now the verse 5. Muninaya sadhu prishtaham Bhavadvir lokamangalam yatkrita Krishna samprashno yata yanatma suprasidhati. Synonym: Munaya, the O sages. Sadhu, this is relevant. Prishta, questioned. Aham, myself. Bhavadvi, by all of you. Loka, the world. Mangalam, welfare. Yat, because. Krita, made. Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Samprashna, relevant question. Yena, by which. Atma, self. Suprasidati, completely pleased. O sages, I have justly questioned by you. Your questions are worthy because they relate to Lord Krishna and so are of relevance of the world's welfare. Only questions of this sort are capable of completely satisfying the soul. So from this verse, Srila Goswami started answering the question. He is very much pleased to answer the question because those are Krishna related. Our daily lives are full of questions. The day starts with many questions and the whole day we spend looking for the answers of those questions. And we felt we left ourselves unsatisfied even though having our answers. The reasons is that for not being satisfied is the missing link of those questions to Krishna. There is no linkage. We are looking for the questions, we are asking for the questions and looking for the answers that are not Krishna related. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, verse 15, Krishna says, Vedeshta sarvam ahamaiva vedda, Vedanta krid veda vedaved, evachaham. Means that by all the Vedas, I am to be known. Krishna is to be known. So in any knowledge, the questions should be linked to Krishna, which will make both the asking person and the answering person satisfied. So the reason behind one's satisfaction after reading Srimad Bhagavatam is that Srimad Bhagavatam deals with questions and answers that are related to Krishna. So that's all for today that we are doing from the verse 1 to verse 5, that Srila Goswami is offering the obeisances to Srila Shukdev Goswami and then Narayana, the Lord Narayana, Narayana Rishi, Mother Saraswati, and then Srila Vyasdeva. And now from the next verse, from verse 6, he will start answering the question asked by the sages. So we'll go those verses from our next class. That's all for today. We'll see all of you in our next class. Until then, keep chanting, keep remembering Krishna, and read Srimad Bhagavatam. And please do share our video to preach the message of Lord Krishna all over the world. Hare Krishna.